Beat Saber is a good video game.
I'm a living legend. You ain't heard yet, you not get the message. From the moment that I'm stepping in, I get a couple.
Beat Saber is a virtual reality rhythm game in which you are a lone sword warrior in a cyberpunk dystopia out to get revenge on the blue and red blocks that killed your family. You hold in your left hand a red and in your right hand a blue, which you use to violently bisect the blocks of corresponding color that are traveling towards you at a distressing pace. Each block has an arrow pointing in the direction you need to slice for your blow to land true. As the genre of rhythm game may perhaps suggest of something called Beat Saber, you are sabering these beats to the rhythm of the music contained within the game. There are also walls you need to dodge, bombs that explode if your swords touch them, and the Vive controller home button, a strategically placed obstacle which will stop your groove in its tracks and send you into an existential panic for all of 5 seconds. I did it. I did the thing. I've played a lot of video games in my time. I consider myself something of an expert in video games that I've played. On a scale of video games I have played to video games I haven't played, Beat Saber falls pretty far onto the have played side of the spectrum. I've played a number of virtual reality video games in my time. Most of these are, in a word, fine. But even those which I truly enjoy are often exhausted of their immediate entertainment value within a few hours. Motivating myself to, as they say, jack into the mainframe often has less to do with the games I want to play than the fact that I haven't yet clocked enough hours on my VR time card to stop feeling guilty about the upfront cost of this hallucinatory plastic cocoon. Games like Superhot and Rick and Morty are fun to jump into, but they lack the allure of replayability. They blow over you like a gust of wind, pleasant in the moment, but immediately forgotten afterwards. Beat Saber, on the other hand, is a disastrous hurricane blowing through the streets of a helpless coastal town, drowning its inhabitants and leaving behind a broken skeletal imitation of what once was. But in a good way. Every day since I first played Beat Saber, I have thought to myself, I should play Beat Saber. And then I play Beat Saber. While I visualize many fun, interesting, or otherwise nourishing activities nearly every moment of every day, rarely do I, as a bipolar 2 transgender human millennial, actualize these visions. So I guess just saying it made me want to do it is probably the most glowing review I could give this video game. It's hard to pin down exactly what makes Beat Saber so satisfying, in part because it's so deceptively simple. The game looks intense, but the act of playing it is so instinctual it doesn't even really feel like a video game. Part of Beat Saber's appeal is its fluorescent neo-noir aesthetic, which creates enough background flavor to give the player a sense of place without melting the graphics card of the poor PC tasked with running it. The music itself is chosen with an eye towards fun and length. No individual song lasts longer than 3 minutes, which means none of them tend to outstay their welcome. Mechanically, Beat Saber avoids much of the skill barrier presented by the likes of Rock Band or DDR, which require learning to associate abstract visual cues with an unrelated physical response. Part of the challenge of these games is bridging the neuronal divide between symbols on a screen and a stupid hunk of plastic. In Beat Saber, blocks are hurtling towards your face, and you have to cut them with a sword so they don't hit your face. You don't have to spend hours rewiring your brain to master a metaphorical abstraction. If you can catch a foul ball, you can play Beat Saber. But this alone is not enough to explain how the game can grab your ankles while you sleep and drag you into the hell zone without eliciting even a single complaint. To this end, I've crafted a nuanced and complicated theory. It feels good to destroy blocks. Destroying blocks is a pastime so integral to video games that its earliest iteration remains one of the most popular pieces of software ever created. Listen, I'm a pacifist by nature. I may love fictional violence, but for real-world reality violence is very not good. But there are times in today's political climate when I hear certain figures open their mouths and release noises that sound like words, and I am overcome by a primal desire to hurtle these human creatures directly into the heart of our sun. Like most healthy people, I unquestioningly closet these impulses and pretend that civilization is fundamentally stable. But video games like Beat Saber, with its faceless blocks audaciously hurtling towards my vulnerable body, provide an outlet for these fiery passions that hurts absolutely no one and makes me feel like the coolest sword haver who ever did a Star Wars. war. What edges Beat Saber out over other VR rhythm games like Audio Shield is that each track is exhaustively tested by human people who have a fear of death. Audio Shield is procedurally generated, meaning that its potentially infinite song variety is dampened somewhat by the fact that you're trusting your conscious mind to an algorithm whose only purpose is to grind down your resistance to indoctrination until you can be downloaded into the machine coalescence and made a vehicle for the uprising. Higher difficulties can appear overwhelming at first, but eventually you start noticing patterns, like a note that demands a downswing is frequently followed by a note that demands an upswing. Beat Saber is designed with the physical location of your arms in mind, which inherently means that a good song takes into account your ability to move through space, which sounds obvious, but it is worth examining closer. Let's compare Beat Saber to drumming in Rock Band. Ideally, at the highest difficulty, your physical input is indistinguishable from what the actual drummer did when they played the song. So from a design perspective, there isn't really a consideration of where your sticks are between notes. And why would there be? The game isn't tracking your sticks, it's only tracking the moment of impact on the drum pad. In Beat Saber, it's the same essential thing. The game doesn't really care where your arms are between notes as long as you hit the notes correctly. But it is tracking your arms at all times, and the game is designed with that knowledge. In Rock Band, if you see a red note and a green note, you hit the red note, then you hit the green note. Doesn't matter if you're upside down, using your feet, or 12 feet away behind a sheet of plate glass piloting a cybernetic homunculus. The movement from one note to the next never changes. In Beat Saber, if you see 6 notes alternating left swing, right swing, this is what you need to do. This movement is smooth and intuitive. If you start to the right of a block and saber to the left, and another block is approaching, your natural inclination is to take the shortest route and swing in the opposite direction, which this alignment takes advantage of. But if you see 6 notes moving at an identical speed, all asking for a left swing only, this is what you need to do. Despite being chronologically identical, the latter alignment is more difficult than the former because the physical movement required of you is literally more physically taxing. What elevates Beat Saber from a garden variety sword gimmick simulator is that the designers are keenly aware of the not necessarily obvious fact that the difficulty of their video game is intrinsically tied to something that has nothing to do with their video game. They know that red is left and right is blue, and if they want to switch that up, they need to broadcast it to you loudly. That's why when you have a red and a blue block demanding simultaneous vertical swings, if the color order is reversed, the blocks will spawn in red to blue and then visibly flip to blue to red so that you know you need to flip your own arms. Perhaps the most amazing sensation Beat Saber elicits is around the 4th time you failed a song on Expert within its first 20 seconds. You grumble, shake your head, defiantly hit the start over button, and you square your shoulders against a wave of blocks shooting at you like tiny little freight trains. You're immediately overwhelmed, and all you can really register is the first note of any given pattern, so you start flailing wildly, wholly expecting to be on the short road to failure. But somehow, the song hasn't ended, and you look up and see that your combo meter is actually going up. Consciously, you have no idea how you're not missing notes, but this is a direct result of the game's core design accomplishment. In higher difficulties, you only really need to see the first direction of a block in a given sequence because Beat Saber knows you naturally want to move your arm in a certain way. So if you see a chain of blocks arranged in a sort of spiral, it's safe to assume that the song wants you to move your arm in a spiral. These are not randomly placed directions, they're designed specifically to make sense for a human body. The goal from a design perspective was not to make the hardest song possible, but to make a hard song that still felt doable. Lower difficulties feature all the same essential movements, but with far fewer overall notes, and this includes the frequent unexpected breaks in a pattern like a sequence that demands switching your arms or the placement of bombs and walls. Easy, normal, and hard modes are naturally easier than Expert, but because of how the game functions in relation to your body, these lower difficulties are quite literally training you to move as the song demands in preparation for Expert mode. Now, this phenomenon of rhythm games training you with skeletal versions of their songs in easy mode is hardly unique to Beat Saber, but its variation of that phenomenon stands apart in that you may as well be memorizing the broad movements of a dance, upon which complications are layered as your skill set improves. If there is any potential downside to all this, it's that players are likely to hit the skill ceiling of Beat Saber far quicker as a result of its mechanical simplicity. As someone who has played many hours of rhythm rhythm games, I was able to get through several songs on Expert relatively quickly, but I can't imagine that similar skill development would take much longer in novices. The game mixes things up enough with its different modes that you never feel out of options, but as development continues and songs are added, one worries that there will be pressure to make the game harder, which could prove disastrous. As it stands, you can't really make Beat Saber much harder than it already is without approaching the physically impossible. So the natural next step is to add other elements, like say double the variety of block colors and give your sabers a switch, so you now have to coordinate the color of your saber along with arm placement and direction. As it stands, all the tools for success are present for the worst and best players alike, but if note switching were added, it could very easily start to feel unfair or aggressively over difficult. Not to mention, brushing the Vive controller home button is already hard enough to avoid without the game asking for actual controller input. My point is, there are countless ways to add difficulty to Beat Saber that would actively make the game less fun. Luckily, these are developers who released in early access what for many indie devs would have sufficed for a finished product, so there's hope that they know what they're doing better than a film student with a video camera. Yeah, I was thinking like we could do a really chill movie watching night, just lay back, relax, and watch Eraserhead. I have played a lot of Beat Saber in my time, 6 hours in fact. As is true with every rhythm game, song variety is key for its long-term success, and at the time of writing, there are only 10 songs in Beat Saber. Now obviously, there are songs that I prefer more than others, but there really isn't a bad apple in the bunch if you're like me and just enjoy sounds. Each of them plays in unique and interesting ways, and there really is nothing comparable to the feeling you get when you're riding the drift and the song just reaches a fever pitch. It also helps that the one hand and no arrow modes are individually tuned and operate under their own logics, effectively tripling the lifespan of the songs for which these modes are available. Even still, there will come a day when these 10 songs have well and truly worn out their welcome if others have not yet been added to the roster. So, as we monitor the development of Beat Saber, it's paramount that we encourage them to add new kinds of songs from a variety of artists and make sure that special thanks go to Logan McQuiston, Austin McCauley, Amy Mims, and Richard Daly. I've made a number of YouTube videos in my time. I consider myself something of an expert in the science of videos that have been made by me. I like to think that these videos are pretty good, but ultimately I am but a lone field mouse scrambling for berries in the underbrush, quivering in constant fear of the infinite variety of ways I may meet my end. So, if you think my videos are alright, perhaps go to my Patreon, patreon.com/LTAS, and help to validate my disastrous life choices by voluntarily giving me money. Every patron of $1 or more gets access to frequent project updates and exclusive videos. $5 patrons get access to my notes and scripts for each video, as well as detailed breakdowns of my process. At $10 a month, you, like the lovely people mysteriously named at the beginning of this self-aggrandizing advertisement, get to have your name read aloud on the internet. Thank you as always for enabling me, and if you've made it this far, why?